Yeah.
No, you just need to send you all and they can't unmute themselves, which means you will be able to. He's unmuted. Perfect.
I didn't hear it.
We are recording.
Oh, okay, yeah, usually it says, it did say, oh, did it? Yeah, okay. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm just going to do a sound check. Councillor Lang, are you able to hear us?
I am, thank you very much.
Excellent. All right, so I've got a couple of things before we get started tonight. Please be patient. Our CAO is having to run the whole show tonight because we have staff illness. So your patience with all of us is very appreciated tonight. And another thing that I wanted to point out that I'm sure that many of you are aware that most members of our council also have jobs outside of our council work. And I wanted to ask for you to respectfully not engage members of public at their places of work because they are being paid by their employers, and I think it's not respectful to engage them in council business when that is not the job that they're doing when they're at their day jobs. So I'm just making that request of members of the public to please bear that in mind when you encounter members of the public at their place of work, that they're being paid by someone else, not by the village at that time. Thank you. So we'll call this meeting to order at 6:03. We respect and recognize the First Nations within whose unceded lands the village of Kaslo is situated, including the Ktunaxa, Sinixt, and Silex people, and the Indigenous and Métis residents of our community. So can I have a motion to adopt the agenda with the late item from the Kaslo Softball and Baseball Association? Moved by Councillor Leetwood and seconded by Councillor Bird. Any discussion? All those in favor? That motion is carried. And then adoption with the addition of the, as amended to include the late addition. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Leetwood. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's carried. And there are two sets of minutes from the regular council meeting of February 11th and the committee of the whole meeting from February the 18th. If there are no errors or omissions, take a motion to adopt both of them as presented. Okay, moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Leetwood. Discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. We have no delegations this evening and reports. I didn't provide a written report tonight because got it in between meetings, and there really wasn't anything that I could get into a written report that met the deadline for agenda prep. And I'm trying to respect staff's time, and I shouldn't be squeaking mine in late when. So I'm respecting the noon on Tuesday submission date as well. So are there any reports from members of council tonight? Councillor Brown.
Through the chair, the community forest met this past Thursday. We reviewed some work that was done last week, and we reviewed the work that we're intending on doing this year, and reviewed some FASDC grants and some things that we've gone for, some we've been successful with. And then George Brinkman came as a delegation to kind of rekindle a conversation about the possibility of partnering with the community forest to perhaps look at the mill site up there, see if there might be a possibility of working together. So that just kind of opened up that conversation again, and we'll see where it goes.
All right, thank you. And no one else? Councillor Leetwood.
Just to remind the public that the U13 playoffs are at the Kaslo Arena this weekend. So all the teams in their division throughout the Kootenays will be there. So it would be great if people would come up and cheer them on.
Right, and for committee minutes, we have the Council Events Committee minutes. The resolutions that are arising from that are under business later on in the agenda. So we will move on to staff reports. Neil Baker.
Thank you, Mayor Hewitt. Just one item to report on. There was a workshop with the RDCK board on February 18th in regards to the regional and local community needs project. And then there was a project team meeting with regional district staff and staff of member municipalities on February 20th. The board expressed concern at their meeting with low public survey engagement. And perhaps something to keep in mind is that the public feedback is used to ensure that there aren't major gaps in the consultant's data and their analysis. And one of the most important aspects of the project is actually the GIS data that would be given to local governments so they have an idea of where development is possible, and as well as help them prioritize their investments in infrastructure to foster possible growth. The GIS data is a tool to aid decision-making, and that information is important regardless of how many members of the public responded to the survey with their input. So there's still value in the project, even though there's low public engagement with the survey. Moving forward, there'll be a scenario modeling in March, community workshops in April, which might include engagement with elected officials in Kaslo and Area D. The RDCK staff are potentially making a pivot on that and seeing if that makes sense given feedback they received from the board. RDCK staff are also reviewing the work plan in general based on feedback they've received. And you have a website included on the printed copy of this report in case you want to find some more information. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Beaker. Yes, there were two communities that had gotten individual presentations from the consultant, and it wasn't widely known that that could happen. So otherwise I would have brought it to our council to see whether there was interest. But there were two who did get presentations, and curiously, they didn't have anybody who filled out the survey. So they had 0 responses. So whether that meant that they felt that they were adequately consulted during those sessions with the councils or not, I'm not sure. But I'm happy to hear that that RD staff has indicated that they're willing to look at that possibility of including elected officials. All right, any questions for the CAO on that item? Okay, so then we've got correspondence, and that's just received. Unless there is something that a member of council wishes to poll for discussion, Councillor Leafwood.
To the chair, I just wanted to poll Ms. Malik's letter about the Fanny dump. He's asked some questions about coin operated, converting the Sandy dump to a coin operation. So she's got some good questions there, and so I just wonder if there was somewhere we could refer this to for consideration, like would it be budget or?
Perhaps what we can do is refer it just to staff to prepare a report on it rather than referring to, because we don't have anything
Right
to refer to budget, whether it's feasible.
Right.
I think that the CEO would have to talk to public works staff and see logistics wise whether that would work. So is that okay to refer it to yourself to to come back with a report
Yes.
when you have time? Okay, thank you. So do you want that minuted as a motion or as direction to the staff sufficient?
I think we should have a motion passed, to refer to staff to provide a response to Ms. Malik and provide a copy to council with the information she's asked about. So,
All right,
perhaps-
Well, to refer Ms. Malik's letter to staff regarding the sanding dam.
second by Councilor Bird. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Any other items before we move on? Councilor Bird.
Through the chair, just that, considering that the, South Beach and the RV park and the, campground, RV park bylaw is not on this agenda, just to let it be known, like, if you would, that, we will be considering the correspondence related to that. When we actually have discussion about that, but it won't be tonight. It's not that we're ignoring it, it's just, it'll be, we keep all of that and read it, before we have our deliberations on anything.
Because of the timing of the last meeting and staff challenges, and we had staff CAO Baker had a training session that he left for that night. So there wasn't time to prepare a report to go with the zoning bylaw change. So upon discussing it with the CAO, we decided to move it to a future meeting. So there wasn't as much pressure because it's not an urgent thing at this point. So, and all South Beach correspondence will be continuing to be treated the same way, and reports all reports are still being uploaded to that site on that page on the website.
Mary Hewitt, I'd have to double check
Okay.
exactly what staff are doing with all of these letters. I'm not
Okay.
too sure the last time they updated the website with.
Was more referring to the report from Barefoot Planning and the follow-up assessment, those items that
Yes.
we have been putting
Yes.
there for not all the correspondence, but the reports that are really germane to the project.
That's correct. That report in particular, Mary Hewitt, I believe has already been added.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you for raising that, Councilor Bird. So then we've already referred to the South Beach, the Barefoot Planning Report, and there was no, the South Beach, the Kaslo. Kaslo South. There's too many Kaslo South. So yes, that is to do with that, and that is provided for council information. And that, if anybody is wondering, that is the parcel that is to the south, and that would be west. Going up the hill across the bridge. That's where that parcel is located. So, Councilor Bird.
This, through the chair, this was provided for our information. Thank you. It's something I've been asking for a while. What I noted was in the timelines that provided by the consultant about how if the plan will unfold and the extent of community engagement in all of that. What I noted is that February and March 2025 have been identified as the community-driven process to identify a vision and the opportunities in that area, which I believe is about 14 acres. Am I correct, about 14 acres. And considering that period of vision finding and community engagement is exactly half over, I am wondering, and I certainly haven't been asked to engage myself. I'm just wondering what kind of engagement has there been so far?
Baker?
Thank you, Mayor Hewitt. I would need to, so once the proposal was received, they then worked with staff to determine what the engagement plan would be. And I would need to go through our documents to determine what the actual engagement plan is. I don't have it handy, but it might have been included in CAO reports that you've received in the last month or two. So you might be able to access it there. You want it sooner than what I can provide.
Follow up.
Okay, supplemental, go ahead.
So to your knowledge, has the public been engaged at all? And I've just missed it.
Through the chair, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any public engagement, but I reserve the right to be corrected by our manager of strategic initiatives when I have a chance to chat with him. But to my knowledge, I'm not aware of any.
Councilor Brown.
Through the chair. I would also note that on page 24 in that it goes to talk about all the stakeholders that are going to be talked to. And at no point does it mention Kaslo housing at all. It has various different organizations in the community, including courts and other things, but the Kaslo Housing Society is not mentioned at all. So I would suggest that they be included as a stakeholder and included in the communications that are happening around that.
The other thing that when CEO and I had met is I'd asked the question, it doesn't specify when council will be engaged and whether we are lumped under community or how that will be, because this is a council initiated project. I think that council should be involved. And I think early on, because like I said, it was a council initiated project. So, okay.
It does.
Yes,
Oh,
council.
It does. It says when we're in the council.
Towards the end.
Oh, that must have been, maybe it was changed. Well, very, like, just as a reporting out, right? It's not, we're not early on in the planning stages. It's just, we're getting the final report. So that's what page are you looking at? If you're on diligent.
It says level of engagement, inform, consult, involve for Kaslo village officials.
But if you look at the actual timeline, we are not involved until the very, very end.
There you go.
That I could see, unless I missed that. Go ahead.
Mayor Hewitt, no, I think you're probably interpreting it correctly. So I would suggest council view this as, this is the proposal they received in response to a request for proposal. And so staff did not, other than the RFP and the details that were in there, staff did not have any conversation with them about what the engagement plan was. It was, they were putting out generally, here's an idea of what we're thinking, you know, and then conversation would have been with staff to go back and forth to finalize and sign an agreement, the contract. And then an engagement plan would have been developed well after this proposal had been received. So I would not take what you read in that proposal. I would not assume that that is the engagement plan in any way. It's been revised and refined with input from staff. So if council wants to know what the engagement plan is, then staff can come back with that information. But I certainly know that in every project that staff have engaged with, I think council has mentioned we'd like to be involved, and staff have made sure that that's always passed on to the consultant, so. Give us some time and I can bring back the engagement plan.
Unless under phase one in the pre-planning, that's village officials, but, yeah. Specifically, council is only mentioned at the end. So just wanted to ensure that we were going to have opportunities throughout the project. Did you have anything, Councillor Lang? I haven't been looking up at you, so I just didn't want to miss you. Okay, thank you. All right, and then there were 2 letters of support. So this is just for your information that they met the criteria for us to just write them without them having to come to council. And there is the copy of the follow-up environmental assessment from Ecoscape. So then that brings us to question period. So as usual, we get 10 minutes for questions from the public. Are there any questions from the public this evening? If you're online, if you want to use the raise hand function, or there's not too many people, if you want to physically raise your hand, I think I could see you all. So then we will move into.
I've got a question.
Oh, okay. And all right, is that you, Bill?
Yes,
Okay, sorry.
it's okay.
Go ahead.
My question is about the land that you're talking about, I guess. At the corner, at the intersection of the back road and Balfour Avenue, there's a survey stake that's been put there at the top of the hill. And I was just wondering, is that to do with some of the developments that you're talking, I mean, this proposed area?
Thank you, Mayor. To my staff are not aware of any survey stakes or what they might be related to.
There was a surveyor there who set up a satellite receptor, and then he pounded in a stake, and then you can see there's a stake with a flag on it. And I'm just wondering if that's related. That's one question.
I don't think any of that land was on the back road or even on the road to the dump, because it was the one that goes down Arena Avenue and then in above the public works yard. So
that's the area
you're aware of something, Councillor Bird? Actually, I usually don't engage you, but so you're through the chair to the chair.
To the chair. That is municipal land. So what I haven't seen is exactly the footprint that gives the redundancy that Barefoot Consulting is actually looking at. But if they're looking at the totality of everything that is within the municipal borders, west of the highway and south of the river, that part that Bill is talking about would be part of it.
It depends. I think it might depend on what was in the study area in the grant application. It might not have included absolutely every piece of municipal land, and we would just be speculating at this point. And because the CAO isn't aware of it at this point, could check with the manager of strategic initiatives and see that at our March 4th meeting, there we will have he will be presenting on capital projects, so that would be an opportunity to ask some questions about the project.
That's good.
Are there any other questions? Okay, one more and then we'll move along unless there's somebody else who, or does anyone else have a question? Since Mr. Wells has already asked one. Okay. Seeing none, I'll let you have one more question.
It's about the drainage from the Back Road Valley. Right now, the drainage of the Back Road Valley is a hazard to the area downslope of that particular place I'm talking about, below that, between Balfour Avenue and Arena Avenue. And it has supercharged two creeks and some springs all into one culvert that is aiming right at Karen Pidcock's and the Settles houses. That's a situation that cannot stand. That's an irresponsible situation there that has been sort of mitigated. Glenn Walker took some effort to set up a situation there that sort of diverts the creek to the west, but then it goes along the road and down into the river. There needs to be a rationalization, and I've been looking at this for 25 years, actually longer. It needs to be, the drainage up here needs to be divided so that it goes into the natural area, natural drainage pattern that was there before these roads were put in here. Because right now it's if we have a big event, all the area between Jimmy Holland's place and to the north has all been put together into one culvert under Kaslo West Road, and that's not the way it needs to be fixed. That's all. That's my question is, are you aware of that? Because I've been writing letters about that for years.
Yeah, I do recall receiving correspondence from you before, and I don't think in several years, and I thought that staff had, and you'd indicated it was a while ago then that when Mr. Walker was Public Works foreman, he looked at it. So perhaps if you can reach out to CAO and give us, or even send a copy of the correspondence that you've sent, so that our new Public Works foreman or our existing Public Works foreman could analyze the situation on his own. Oh, can't hear you, Bill. You're on mute now. Oh, okay.
Okay, I would really love to talk to them about it. Glenn, and I forget the name of the works foreman who came after Glenn, the fellow who died, unfortunately. He also looked at it and understood what the situation was, but I think it costs money to fix it.
Thank you, Bill. So there is correspondence that Mr. Wells had provided before, but I can't remember the time frame, if it was during Mike's tenure, so that would have been a while ago. Yeah, that would have been about 5 or 6 years ago at least. All right. Then we'll move on to business. The first item is the Kaslo Parks Regulation Bylaw 1311. And so the recommendation, well, first I'll mention thank you, CAO Baker, for doing the consolidated bylaw, because when I read it, it was, we're going to remove this, remove that, and which was what we had voted on. But just so that we knew exactly what the new bylaw said, so that was a combination. So that is 1162 is the final consolidated But the 1311 is the amendment bylaw, which was what we were voting on. But just so that the council and public could see what the end result of that action was. So the recommendation is that the Kaslo Parks Regulation Amendment Bylaw 1311-2025 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Bird, seconded by Councillor Leithwood. And all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. And Municipal Campground Bylaw 1312-2025. Recommendation is that the Kaslo Municipal Campground Bylaw 1312-2025 be adopted. Moved by Councillor. There's no discussion on adoption.
Okay.
The only action you could take at this point, if you do not want to adopt it as it is to rescind third reading. And if you are wishing to have changes made, changes can only be made up to third reading. Otherwise, third reading must be rescinded. And then we go back and recommend any changes, if that is what you're wishing. So it's either adoption or rescinding third reading.
There are things that are unclear to me. So cannot vote for it, but I cannot go up against it either. Because I have questions, but if those questions cannot be asked, I will not vote. Either way.
So if there is no motion on the table, it has no motion has been seconded. So okay, so because there's no motion that's been seconded, so if you want any changes, that will require rescinding. But if you have questions for clarification of the CAO, we've had opportunity to comment on the bylaws previously. So go ahead and ask CAO before we have a motion on the table.
The chair, in the policy previous to this, there were many things that were deleted. And in this policy, it continually refers to a manual. And as things have been removed from the other one, and I keep getting pointed to a manual, I'm wondering where we can access this manual so that we can see what the information is in there, as this policy continually points to a manual. And it'd be difficult for me to have a complete understanding of what it is that we're going to be voting for if we're pointing to a document that I haven't accessed. So I'm wondering where we can see the manual. And yeah, basically, I'm just wondering where this manual is housed so that I can access it and see the information within.
Through the chair, so a campground bylaw has never existed for the village. And we've now removed the details of the campground from the parks campground bylaw. It's a standalone bylaw. This bylaw that is up for a possible adoption tonight refers to a manual that would include policy and procedures. So council previously saw a draft of the policy at a previous meeting, and there were a number of changes that council wanted. And so staff have not brought that policy back yet with the changes that were requested. In the meantime, felt like the bylaw could still be adopted because all it's doing is saying we're establishing the campground as a service, and we're going to develop the policy and procedures. So let's get the policy adopted and then we can finalize the policy. Sorry, let's get the bylaw adopted so that we can finalize the policy. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
I'll move to adopt the bylaw.
Second, Councillor Bird. All those in favor? Carried. Councillor Leithwood.
Through the chair, Can I ask a question now that we've adopted the parks bylaw for clarification? Well, not clarification. It mentioned a special event permit. So do we need, is that on top of a beer garden application, for instance?
Through the chair, I believe they could both be required. If there was a special event occurring and a beer garden was a part of it, I believe you could have both permit applications coming to council.
Okay.
So our next item is for consideration of the street patio license of occupation. Councillor Bird.
This, through the chair, this represents a conflict of interest for me as I'm an employee of said business of which this is about. So I shall leave.
You'll note that Councillor Bird has declared a conflict for item 7.2. All right. So this is for council to consider the application for a street patio license of occupation for 2 parking spaces in front of Eric's Meat Market, the Dog House Restaurant, for up to 5 years. So are there any questions for staff regarding the report or the license of occupation before I read the recommendation? My only question, which I had mentioned to the CAO, was this license area it's right around the garbage receptacle, and because this is a takeout business and it's not an actual restaurant, just I had questions regarding waste disposal, because if the hours of operation are going to be such that people will naturally throw their waste from that business into a public receptacle, which then normally our contractor would pick up the waste. But because of the extended hours of operation and the nature of the business, I just had concerns that we would be giving benefit to business because their patrons would be utilizing a public receptacle. They would not be dealing with their own waste. I don't want it to hold this up. I agree that I don't have a problem with the license of occupation. I would just like a discussion to happen regarding that. And because the volumes could be more than could be accommodated during the times that there isn't a pickup available, because we're not going to institute any additional pickups at that receptacle because of the business. It will just be normal pickup on the days that they do their rounds. So that was my only concern that I would like conveyed to the meat market is I would like to have them come forward with their plan for addressing the waste created from their activities. So if there's nothing else, the recommendation is that a temporary license of occupation for Eric's Meat Market to use 2 parking stalls in front of 425 Front Street for an outdoor patio be approved for up to 5 years from 2025 to 2029, as described in the staff report titled Temporary License of Occupation, Eric's Meat Market, dated February 20th, 2025.
Wow.
So moved by Councillor Brown and seconded by Councillor Lang. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Yes. Item is the Visitor Information Center. This is a request from the Kootenai Lake Historical Society for us to write a letter of to Destination BC endorsing them as the operator of the visitor center. So the recommendation is that the village provide Destination BC with a letter confirming the Kootenai Lake Historical Society as the operator of the village's visitor information center for 2025. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Bird. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. And 7.5 are recommendations raised from the Kaslo Events Committee. The first motion is that the Events Committee proceed with planning a volunteer fair and appreciation event on Saturday, April 12th, 2025, and that the committee apply for a community development grant in the amount of $4,000 to cover the cost of the event. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Leafwood. Any discussion? Councillor Bird.
Yeah, through the chair, just to be clear, the community development grant in the amount of 4,000, that's an RDCA grant.
It is our funds that are, it's a fund
Okay, that's
administered by the regional district, yes. Yeah. Any further discussion? Questions? Okay. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. 7.6 BC Association of Farmers Markets. That was a correspondence item, but I asked CEO to put it on as a business item, and the recommendation is that the village write a letter to Minister Osborne in support of BC farmers markets, highlighting their importance to our community. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Bird. Any discussion? All those in favor? Councillor Lang has gone dark. All right. Okay, so that motion passes. I'm not sure what happened to. He's on the list, but his face isn't. There we go. You were dark for a minute there, Councillor Lang. So I wasn't sure how long you'd stepped away for.
Yeah, I'm having some bandwidth issues here, so
Okay.
bear with me.
All right. Thank you. And the next item is correspondence from the Environmental Assessment Office regarding the Zigton Resort Project. The recommendation is that the mayor and CAO write a letter to the Environmental Assessment Office in response to the questions posed in their February 14th, 2025 letter to the mayor. Now that is an item that I just individually received, but I forwarded it on to staff for inclusion on the agenda because we have previously dealt with items regarding that proposal at our table, but that was with the last council. So I just felt it was important that we see it, that all of council sees it, not just myself. So there is comfort in having myself and the CAO work together on a letter in response. Moved by Councillor Bird. Okay, second by Councillor Leafwood. Discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Bird.
Through the chair, as I understand it, the crux of any response would be whether you feel that the Environmental Assessment Office should do an environmental assessment of the project. And I'm just wondering what kind of response that you intend to make.
Well, CEO and I haven't discussed it any further than that we would provide a response. But if any council has any input on that, we welcome that. So so in the letter, it says would requiring an environmental assessment by the EAO of the project one, help protect the environment. Two, foster a sound economy. Three, support the well-being of British Columbians. And four, support reconciliation with Indigenous peoples in BC. So those are the four questions that are being asked. And we have had previous correspondences, and people reached out to the previous council expressing concerns regarding the numbers of people and the large tract of land that would be involved and with the migration of the movement of wildlife through that zone. So primarily on that one, but I think it's important for us to weigh in. The benefits are to our community are nebulous, I think, because it's more on the New Denver end, but I think it's important for us to speak for wildlife. Because it is a large number of people and a large tract of land. But if there's any particulars, the response time is very tight, February 28th. So we don't have a lot of time. If there are any concerns that council has about us writing the letter, then just don't vote for it. And if you're comfortable, or if you would have any input, please send it to CAO in the next day or two. So it's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Councilor Bird?
Through the chair. Well, so while it's on the table, my own feeling is that an environmental assessment is warranted. And certainly wildlife corridor issues are going to be, exacerbated. It'll be a lot easier for predators to be moving fast because there'll be more corridors, and there'll also be helicopters. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I can't see the harm, and I can certainly see the usefulness of having professionals give an environmental assessment. That's my input.
Thank you. Councilor Brown?
Through the chair, I would also, having not been in council at the time this was discussed, there's lots of information that I haven't seen, but I would be in favor of an environmental assessment regardless. So if that's what this letter contains, then I would certainly be in favor of it.
Yes, it would be essentially as asked, supporting the requirement for that to happen. It doesn't meet the criteria as far as the number of beds visits, but it's close, and it could have a large impact on the environment. All right, any further discussion? All question then, all those in favor? Any opposed? All right, so then that motion passes. All right, and then it is awkward moving back and forth between the pages. All right, so then that brings us to our late item, which is Kaslo Softball and Baseball Association. Councilor Brown.
Through the chair, as I am the president of the Kaslo Baseball and Softball Association, I am going to recuse myself from this conversation.
So for this one, we're going to rely on yourself, CAO Baker, to if you have any background, because there is nothing linked here. So the recommendation is that the Kaslo Softball and Baseball Association be permitted to sell sponsorship recognition for the new dugouts constructed at Murray Pearson Ballpark, and that the design of the plaques be submitted to the village staff for approval. Do we have Any sense as to what what they're proposing, other than to sell sponsorships?
Mayor Hewitt, so the village received an email from the association requesting basically the recommendation and indicating that the funding for the dugouts that are being constructed, they're a bit short on. And so they're looking for ways of raising funding, and thought that this might be a good way to do it by putting a donor recognition in a classy way. I believe it indicated, you know, like a metal plaque of some sort on the back of the dugout to let folks know that there's been a donation made. And so conversation did occur about, you know, how big, and we don't want it maybe to look gaudy. And of course, there's a sign bylaw that the village has. And so what staff were given were confirmation that they were thinking of something kind of smaller and in keeping with the design of the dugout, not to make it some big flashy donation with the phone number of who the donor is, these kind of things. It's more just as recognition. And so that's why part of the recommendation is for staff to ultimately take a look at it and make sure that it feels like it's something that the village could support and be proud of. So if council's comfortable to let staff have the final decision, and if you'd like, perhaps staff can come back with a copy of the design that the Baseball Association settled on.
Any questions for staff before we vote? Councillor Ford, go ahead.
Through the chair, one thing I note, when I was reviewing the Parks bylaw 1162, it says in 8C that there shall be no signage within the park, advertising or otherwise, I guess. I forget exactly the wording, but it was aimed at no advertising unless that special permission is granted within a special use agreement. So if we have a special use agreement with the softball club, the sponsorship sign would have to be mentioned if we were to comply with the parks bylaw.
To the chair, from staff's perspective, you know, I would suggest that a donor recognition is different than sponsorship signage, which is intended to promote a business. You know, you could imagine these 3 foot by 8 foot banners in the outfield of a ballpark would be a sponsorship banner, whereas what the association's requesting is a donor recognition. So I might draw a distinction there. Of course, it's up to council to decide how it might apply, but that would be staff's professional opinion.
Supplemental?
Yeah, through the chair. Well, I imagine because we do have a special use agreement for the park, just putting it in there just so that there's no confusion that the donor within that special use agreement that the as agreed upon format for donor plaques are permitted. No harm in putting that in, and just to be clear.
So do we have any comment to regard to the size of the plaques, if that is what is going to be put on? I know that the courts does plaques on the bridges as a way to raise money, something along those lines. And also the library has been selling perimeter plaques for the new library. So and I believe they're about, I don't know, 2-3 inches by 2 inches, something like that. Is that, because I definitely don't want anything, as the CEO had indicated, large banners that promote a business. It's just to recognize donors, and some of them may be business, but some of them will be individuals as well, without it being advertising, but just recognition of the name of the business. But,
Well, through the chair, I feel like between staff and the softball association, they'll come up with something in line with other type plaques that we have in Kaslo. Not too worried about that. They'll figure something out.
Okay.
I'll move the recommendation.
Action been moved by Councillor Leafwood and seconded by Councillor Bird. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That motion is carried. We'll have Councillor Brown come back in. Yep, thank you. So then in camera, so the recommendation is that in accordance with section 91A, a part of a council meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered relates to or is one or more of the following. C, labor relations or other employee relations. So K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages that in the view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. And that persons other than council members and municipal officers be excluded from the meeting. Moved by Councillor Lang and seconded by Councillor Leafwood. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. We're now in recess. We're going into in camera.